Could I remind members and staff to, in addition, I would also like to ask everyone to ensure that their mobile phone or computer is switched to silent mode, please. Filming of meetings. This meeting will be audio-visually recorded and will be available to view on the Council's website and YouTube channel. Can I ask all those present to use their microphones to ensure the audio can be captured? Any members of the public entering the Council chamber are accepting that their images will be retained and broadcast by the Council. If any member of the public or press is intended to record or film any part of today's meetings, please ensure that this does not disturb the conduct of the meeting. If you are visually recording, you are requested to only focus on recording. We'll move to the agenda. Are there any apologies for absence? Have Councillor Rob Dennis. No more? To consider the extent to which the public and press are to be excluded from the meeting, there are no issues on the agenda. Declarations of interest, if any. If you have any interest, please declare this and a form will be needed to be completed following the meeting. Please contact Christine Rothwell, who can assist you with the process. Minutes of the meeting held on the 1st of October 2025, pages 1 to 6, to approve as a correct record. Yeah. Members? Yeah, agreed. Agreed. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. A period not exceeding 20 minutes for statements from up to 5 members of the public on matters within the panel's remit, proposing actions which may be considered or contribute towards the future development of the panel's work programme. Depending on whether there are any members of the public who wish to make a statement, if not, note this and refer to the next point. If a member of the public does not attend, give them 3 minutes unless you feel more time is required. In accordance with Council procedure rules, I would like to take agenda item 7 before agenda item 6. Are you agreed? Agreed. Thank you. Neil. Would don't they want to introduce? Right. I'd like to invite Neil to introduce himself and answer questions.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, my name is Neil Firth. I'm the Head of Service for Major Projects and Strategic Infrastructure at the Council. I've been asked today to give you a progress update of where we are on the Levelling Up 3 programme. As a presentation, there's quite a lot of information to go through. So with your permission, Chair, I'd like to go through the presentation and I'll give you a full update and progress. I'm happy to answer questions as we go through. Thank you. So the LUF 3 programme had a trouble start. The schemes in Moorends and Mexborough. As a council, we submitted proposals to LUF 2. Council was not successful in that. And then a year later, we got word from the government that we'd been successful in Levelling Up 3. In the meantime, lots of the projects that we were covered in Levelling Up 2 were already underway. The 3-year programme on Levelling Up 2 got closed down to a 2-year programme, and then the government took a year for signing off approval to actually commence schemes. So the fact that we've got to where we are now, we're pretty much on site on all of the schemes throughout the programme, has been a success to everybody involved. Many authorities actually give the money back to the government because they couldn't deliver the programme because of the way the government had managed the situation through the process. There's 2 major elements to Levelling Up 3. The Moorends programme, which I'll take you through now, and that's to a value of £3.9 million. So just under £4 million worth of investment into Moorends. You'll see from the slide it says to be complete by 31st of March 2026. That was the original programme. That has been extended through government approval to March 27. and we're on programme to deliver that. That's all been approved by government. The schemes fit down to the areas under the bullet points there: Marston Road and Wembley Road public improvements, a pocket park on Wembley Road, a circle public realms works, Pickhill allotments, recreation ground, and Darlington Grove. I'll take you through each one of those individually. Those schemes came from the Moor Ends master plan, which had already been undertaken by the local town council prior to this investment. So these schemes that had already gone through public consultation and public approval and sign-off. As you can see, there's a layout of the Moor Ends. The schemes are shown on the map for geographical location. I'll take you through each one. So the Marston Public Realm Works is around the shop area, the centre of Moor Ends. It's basically paving works around the streets, improving up to the shop fronts, trying to give us some more civic pride. There's been some previous work done in Moor Ends, but that was the kind of bits left over from the previous schemes in Moor Ends to the highways infrastructure and the shop front improvements. And you can see there's some of the pavement works that were done. There's also a shop front improvement scheme. So that effectively means that the shop owners get a £10,000 grant to do up the front of their shops to make them more attractive and to give a better view of the street. There's some before and afters of the schemes we've done in Stainforth. We've done something in Stainforth, we've done something in the town centre. There's a few in Moor Ends. We'll come on to in Mexborough. There's significantly more in Mexborough for that. This is the kind of centre of Moor Ends. What was very clear from the master plan was Moor Ends never had a centre. There was no like focal point to it. There was a kind of collection of shops, but even then, that collection of shops was fronted by a piece of wasteland with derelict public toilets on it. It had been dumped by some waste units had been put on there for clothes donations, and the people were just dumping there and they weren't getting collected. That was your first impression of Moor Ends in the centre. Was a really horrible kind of first impression, and it didn't have any kind of civic centre to it. So you can see from this picture here, the bottom, there's going to be a public realm scheme on there. So that elevation wall that we show on there, that's going to have a mural on it. The toilets have already been dismantled, demolished, and there's seating and public realm area. There's trees and landscaping, and it'll be a bit of a civic centre for Moor Ends in that area. Again, that was something that came out of the public consultation through the master plan. The Darlington Grove play area to the north of Moor Ends, very tired, very underused. There was lots of drainage issues. There was an area where it wasn't very focused on the kind of a need for different age ranges to use the site. So there's a large scheme to be done in Darlington Grove. Here's some kind of views of it. There's going to be some dog walking. They're going to do some tree planting to get rid of some of the flooded areas and screen off some of the residential areas. And there's a whole refurbishment of all of the play area equipment in that Darlington Grove area. The recreation ground. Just before when we were developing the opportunities for investment to Moor Ends, the recreation pavilion was burnt down in an arson attack. And so it was very clear from the community of Moor Ends that they wanted that replacing. Otherwise, because they wouldn't be able to replace it without it. And it was a central point to the recreation ground. What we've managed to do is to replace the pavilion with a much better pavilion, much more up-to-date and much more usable for to bring in income. There's going to be a lot of events areas. There's going to be a bar area, cafe in it, and the whole reconfiguration of that up to current standards. And that's when it's complete, it will be given to the town council for them to own and maintain and run. So there's improvements to all the periphery sites. There's new gateways to make it more attractive on entrance. There'll be signboards, there'll be new footways, and there'll be improvements to the existing functions there. Play areas, linking the play areas, repainting and upgrading of the mugger areas. There's looked to be a pump part, and I think we're going to locate the cycle proficiency there as well, and putting some extra infrastructure for to become a cycling hub for the north of Doncaster. And you can see there's some more images of the improvements to the landscape area and gating area. And also there's going to be improvement to the parking facilities down there, which is a bit ad hoc. There's a picture of the pavilion that was knocked down. That's the bottom image is the one of Bentley, which was a similar kind of pavilion providing that did it for Bentley, and we used the same similar architects, Doncaster architects, and the Doncaster contractor to build them. The one in Moorends is going to be significantly better than that. It's going to be brick clad. It's actually up to eaves level now, and it's probably about a third as big again as the Bentley one, and that's been an absolute fantastic success for the community of Bentley, used by the Rugby League Club. The Moorends Rugby League Club are going to be using the one in Moorends as well. That's the layout of the function. See what the kind of size of it, the bar area there, and the events area, and a kitchen, and the Marauders Rugby League change rooms up in the corner, which is very much more closer to their ground now, and referees' positions and places, and we're going to section it off so they can have multiple events on it at the similar time, and hopefully that the bar itself will bring enough income to more than cover running costs. The one in Bentley has very successfully done that. There's layouts now. The last one was the pig allotments. It's investment to the pig allotments. That allotment is currently the biggest allotment site in England. There's over 400 plots on that site, very well utilised, an absolute demographic patronage of that from people from all different backgrounds. But it was tired and needed some investment, and there was a real willingness and appetite from the people from the allotments to add more value to it. They tried to put some classrooms in there. They tried to put some shop in there. They tried to put some facilities for toilets in there. Very poorly done on the cheap. Not very well done. So the ambition here is to clear the site from all of and that site's actually ongoing now. There was lots of old asbestos-ridden sheds that had been left and places overgrown at the entrance side. But the ambition is for that we're going to put classrooms in it. We're going to put a new shop in it. We're going to have solar lighting to run them, and they've got an events program to bring in people from elderly groups, from children groups, from people in military groups to come to the site and take them around, because not only the site does it just grow vegetables, there are animals on site. There's chickens, pigs, ducks, Shetland ponies. There's a fantastic range of little kind of small holdings, if you like. And the idea was to take the children around and then teach them how plants grow and how vegetables grow, and then let them look how to cook them in the classrooms. So there's a car park there. We widened out to allow for minibuses to access the site, and so that those mobility groups. And I think there's the part of the council that deals with that kind of events manager going to assist the allotments in a series of events, and I think they're very excited to do that. So all that is very much on site and ongoing now, and we've improved some of the attenuation pump to improve some of the drainage on the site, and there's some of the units that are going in, and there's going to be an accessible garden area for encouraging bees and biodiversity on the site as well. So I think that brings us to the Moorends. I'm happy to take any questions on Moorends, and I'll just run straight into what the proposals, the LLUF proposals for Mexborough.
Is it all right if we take the questions now, Neil? Or how long will the Moorends presentation be?
We'll finish Moorends, Mexborough next, and we'll be about the same time, about the same again.
Yeah, we'll do it all then. We'll let you carry on.
So the Mexborough LUF 3 is a £2.5 million investment into the centre of Mexborough. It's important this is linked to an additional scheme, which was the transport funded scheme, which is another approximately £12 million. So there's a £24 million investment in Mexborough. But as we just talked about LUF today, I'll focus on the LUF schemes. But the scheme is being done together. It's a full regeneration of Mexborough, of which LUF 3 is funding half of it. So the schemes here again are High Street landscaping, Bank Street improvements. I'll come to details in a minute. Swinton Road improvements, Station Road improvements, access to athletic clubs, shopfront improvement scheme, and a Marcus Regeneration project. Much of this work is, certainly the Bank Street works are already been done and complete and have gone down well with the community. All these projects came out of the Mexborough Master Plan, which was done in 2019, 2020. So this had consultation. Then we did a full consultation exercise over a number of weeks involving the communities of Mexborough to get these schemes supported and approved. There's a kind of geographical layout of the schemes, some of the schemes in the town centre, and I'll cut each one as we go along. So the High Street, improved surfacing, lighting, CC improvements, modernise the public realm. I think the background to this is Mexborough was getting tired. As a high street, the accessibility to the centre was very poor. The buses weren't going into the retail core. You couldn't access the town centre. That got exacerbated by the removal of the flyover, which was structurally unsound. The train stations cut off from the centre, and that was a massive asset for Mexborough. That wasn't being utilised. The multi-storey car park was massively underutilised. People didn't like going in it. It was a horrible environment. It was being used by antisocial behaviour on the top floors. The kids were throwing bottles and stones down onto the high street. All the top floors were being sectioned off for years anyway. All of the rooftop car park was sectioned off. And so the whole context of this is to try and regenerate the town centre, make it work more functionally, undo some of the ad hoc issues that happened in the past. Many of these go back decades of probably not the right scheme at the right time. And in alignment with the CRSTS programme, it's to tidy it all up and make it function better and get the people and the patronage and the footfall into the town centre and for the business community. And clearly, doing up the high street to the highest possible standard material is ongoing now. There are, on the periphery of the town centre, improvements, footpath improvements, accessibility improvements to some of the here it's the athletic sports club park. There was certainly some issues there with, I think, children having to walk around near live traffic, and there was an access to the desire route that wasn't formalised, so they've gone in and formalised that. I think that scheme's practically complete. Shopfront improvement schemes. I mentioned these are where they give out £10,000 grants for the shops to updo their shop frontage. That's very well ordered and very well scrutinised. We pay the contractor. We don't give them £10,000. They agree what's going to be done. They can have their own contractor once we've agreed and approved the work's been done and checked it's been done to the standard and that the work's done meets the £10,000, up to £10,000, then they get paid. There's no handing over money to business to go run off with it. But in Mexborough, there's 100 we plan to do the whole of the high street and beyond into the retail core. Again, as you can imagine, that's gone. A lot of the money we spend on the council's fabric on our streets. This is very much where the local business community get a direct benefit from it. And sometimes it seems it's a bit shortfall. If we do have a beautiful street and then all the shop frontages are falling down and non-consistent, then it doesn't really create the right impression. Where we've done this, it really does tidy the street properly and brings up cohesiveness, and people feel regenerated into, oh, well, there is something in it for us. That's something that's ongoing. We'll do the shop front improvement scheme once we've done the civil engineering down the high street. We only go down, do the shop front scheme, because all that's painting and glazing, that kind of thing, and then start doing the paving afterwards. So we do all that, then we follow them up with the shop front improvement scheme. Market Regeneration project. You'll all know the kind of building complex in Mexborough, which includes the indoor market, the retail units, and the multi-storey car park. You may have heard in the past that the council's tied into a not favourable contract agreement on that, and it's tired, and it's mentioned multi-storey car park. But all around York Square, all the retail units are void. It kind of detracts from the town centre, even though because it's quite a good buzzing footfall. Every time I go to Mexborough, it's quite busy actually, but the parts of it that are kind of dragging it down. As you'll know, the indoor market, there's 10 units in there. MAM are running it, but they're saying that, you know, it's a challenging environment. It's very difficult to get new operators to come in to take up a stall. And one of the things about the market, you can see from the outdoor market, if all of those units around the outdoor market are void and don't look very nice, and the outdoor market's practically not used, and the access to the indoor market is in the bottom corner of that, it's not a very inviting place to go. And I think that also detracts from the footfall into the indoor market. So the proposals are to demolish the multi-storey car park. There's currently, we've monitored that over the last 2 years, and at its peak there's 50 cars in there. It doesn't take any revenue. The average is about 30 on a busy Friday. I think 50 at a peak. So the concept there is to demolish that car park and replace it with a surface car park that's properly landscaped, so it doesn't detract from the vista and the site into Mexborough. We're building another 40 car park spaces just off this picture near the indoor market, which will more than cover those the use in that current multi-storey car park, as well as we can get probably about 30 or 40 on the surface car parking. So there'll be a net increase in car parking spaces based on the current demand. Of course, we're going to lose 200 spaces on the multi-storey car park, but they're never used anyway, so it's not really a loss if they're never ever used. People don't want them. There's kind of some images about where the multi-storey car park, surface car park landscape would be. We'll try and make it as green as possible, and the concept of doing a mural on the elevation wall to try and give that a good impression of the town centre. That view from Greensway now into town centre is awful, exacerbated by the multi-storey car park. And say the York Square, there's a scheme to do on York Square, to the paving scheme. Again, that started this week, so that's an improvement to that whole area. Clear out the old market stalls. They're never used. Even the odd days when they use the markets, they don't use the stalls, they bring their own pop-ups anyway. So the concept there is to tear that out, create a design into the market hall, create a design line and an attractive place around those retail units. And the concept around those retail units is to do up all those retail units. There's 5 units down the side and 4 down the front. They've become dilapidated because of the roof leakages that have been caused, which is a Doncaster Council liability on the lease. That is currently being fixed. We'll then upgrade all of the retail units and then move the market trades into those retail units. So this has all been negotiated with them. That bit hasn't completely been finalised yet. We've still got to get them to fully sign up to this. But we've got the lease agreements, we've got approval from the superior tenant, the subtenant. MAM were involved in this, but there won't be if this scheme comes to fruition. And then we'll move the market trades into those units. And then there's the empty units there. Then the concept will be to repurpose the current indoor market, possibly something like we've done in the wool market. It'll then create an additional footfall, extend the patronage days, because at the moment it kind of tapers off in the mid-afternoon, and what it doesn't have is any early evening economy for Mexborough. So if we get like a wool market in there, if that can do what it's done for Doncaster market, it will be a real opportunity for Mexborough. Certainly linked to now we can improve access to the train station and move the public transport into the centre. So that's the working position on that. Those proposals have been approved by Cabinet to implement them, but it's still subject to getting the market traders to sign up leases, getting Harnby to agree, getting Zurich, who won the superior tenant, to agree. All of those have been in principle. And when you're putting that caveat in, because until the market traders sign the leases or Harnby sign the head lease, things could change. But at the moment, everybody's in favour of this proposal and sees the benefit for everybody involved. I think that's where we are on that. Clearly, there's a lot more information at the back of this. I'll give you like an insight to where we are, but very much we are on site in all of this. The only schemes we haven't got absolutely fully committed is the market hall proposals and the multi-storey car park. But everything is progressing to suggest that we will be we will be doing those. So, Chair, I have to answer any questions.
Thank you, Neil, for a very interesting and in-depth. Right, can I start off with the first question? And this is regarding pig ill allotments. Are they statutory allotments, and are they in the ownership of CDC?
Like most allotments, these are council-owned allotments, but they're leased to the Moor Ends Allotment Committee. So we own the freehold of land, but they're leased to them. So they self-govern under the lease agreements.
So they're not statutory?
I'm not sure what the statutory...
They're under the control of the environment.
Of the environment?
Sorry, not the environment. They are protected by law. In order to dispose of the actual allotments, you would have to go to the Secretary of State. Sorry. Yeah, with them being, if they are statutory allotments, they would have to go through the Secretary of State for any form of disposal. Yeah,
well, clearly we're not planning a proposal. This is an upgrade of the current site. I suspect you're probably right. I wasn't aware of the full statutory process, but yeah, they are allotments under the council's allotment as part is allocated within the local framework, and effectively they're leased to run by a local. All allotments, there's an allotment committee which effectively run it under a lease agreement. So I suspect the answer to there, Frank, is yes.
Thank you, Neil. Right, moving on then to the Moor End Regeneration. Marshland Road public groundwork. The shopfront improvement scheme along the main retail core to improve the aesthetics of the area of which you've explained. Many of these shops are in clusters. The focus will be around the Marshland Road and Wembley Road junction. My question is, in many towns and parishes, businesses have moved into the early evening, nighttime economy, resulting in many retail shops having their shuttering down, giving an appearance of a closed economy. Could street art be considered to brighten the frontage of the shuttering, depicting the stores trading?
The direct answer is yes. We are trying to do that. We've tried to do it as much as possible, try and get local schools involved and that kind of thing. What we've had a problem with some of the shutters, the gaps are so wide that you can't actually put the murals on them, and some of them, when we've tried them, they're made of a zinc alloy, and it's very difficult to get a paint or anything or wrapping to stay on them. So we've tried to do that. I mean, anything can be done with unlimited budget, but based on that, which obviously there's a limited amount on the shopping front, it's going to be 10,000, and if we're already improving the doorways and the windows and the leaking drainage and making it look nice, getting specialised paint suppliers to do those shutters made it unaffordable in many occasions, but where we can do it, we will be doing it. And you're absolutely right, when the shutters come down, it gives like a siege mentality to a town, and if you had at least a nice friendly mural on it, it looks better. So absolutely, we'll do this wherever we can. We do try to encourage it as much as possible.
Thank you for that, Ian. Could I call on Councillor Reesbeck, please?
I think you've actually already answered my question in your presentation, but what are the sort of maintenance arrangements around the green space areas in Moor Ends?
So in Moor Ends, on the civic square we build in, we are gifting that to the town council, and they're going to maintain it, which is good for the council. And on the parks area, we've done them in arrangement and agreement with Street Scene. So that's they've approved any facility changes. We've done that. In fact, the one on Darlington Grove, they have real problems with cutting the grass on there because it's so boggy. So we've actually raised up the footpaths and we've put lots of trees in to soak up, to improve the water table on it, to improvement for street scenes. So it's not just improving that, we've looked to get to improvement for future maintenance as well.
Okay. Could I, going on to the play area, Neil, I appreciate that you did it in the presentation, but could you actually outline your ideas? Are there going to be additional equipment, or are you just replacing like for like?
The footprint of the actual play area itself will be similar to as it is now, but all the new equipment will be up to modern standards, and it will be a wider age group range to try and attract it from not just the toddlers, but for other age groups. throughout the whole of the park, there'll be footpaths put in, there'll be dog walking footpaths, and there'll be little wilding areas to make the whole area improvement. So as a site, at the moment, it's a very boggy field with a play area in the middle that you can sometimes get to without getting your feet wet. It'll be much improved on that. So the whole area will be improved.
Thank you, Neil. Can I call on Councillor Neil Wood for the next question?
Cheers, Frank. So the project, we've just heard it's going to complete in March 27. That's correct. It was supposed to be 26.
Yes, the government have extended the programme to 2027, yeah.
So can you just explain what the timeline was from the start of the project to completion in 27? Just for as members to understand what sort of work's gone into it so far to get it to this point. And that's on the more end, we'll start with.
That's a very extensive question, and I kind of alluded at the beginning about how the process was changeable with regard to securing the funding and the government's position on the funding, particularly when it changed government halfway through the programme and changed its name, and we weren't involved, then we suddenly were involved. Delivery of programmes like this, the lead-in time can be quite extensive, and this has been no different. It's much easier. We much rather be on site as quickly as possible, but we had to have government approval, we had to have community approval on the specific schemes, we have to have cabinet approval. Where we've tied it in on the Mexborough scheme, that had to be done through and lined in with the SIMCA funding for the CRSTS funding, so we couldn't start the earlier schemes where they had implications on the transport schemes and vice versa. So the programme probably started 3 years ago. In advance of that would be the master plans, but the master plans were done in advance, not knowing when the funding was, if there was funding available. So it's been quite serendipity that we've got a master plan and then funding became available for those areas that we managed to implement much of the master plan. The More Ends works, I think, will be complete by end of summer, so in advance of March 2027. The Mexborough schemes may well overrun because we had delay starts on the transport schemes before we got full approval. We got full approval to commence that work in last month. But I suspect much of although the Mexborough scheme might go into 2027, probably most of the LUF scheme will be complete by March. So having said that, in many of these programmes, very few of them finish within the original programme timescales because they're never very, very realistic. We will always be extended. As long as you're on site and you're spending, you're complete, and the schemes are delivering, and it doesn't become a problem. As I say, because of the constraints and changes in the programme approvals, many authorities just handed the money back, say it was too difficult to deliver. We don't like handing money back. And so we carried on to deliver, and we managed the risk.
So moving on from that then, how much have you got the community engaged in this process, and what sort of skills are you trying to give to the community? I were involved, I were affected by the stain for Regeneration, and we had council employees doing block paving, but there were a lot of people in the village thought it'd be a good opportunity for youth to get involved and possibly learn a trade such as block paving. Is there any plans to do anything like that in More Ends?
I'm not sure there's the opportunity in More Ends to do that. I think in Mexborough there is more because we're working with a much larger construction company, and I think there's lots of what we call social capital involvement in that. There's certainly lots more community involved. Certainly on the public arts side of the Mexborough scheme, all of that's been run by local community groups, and they're heavily involved in that, ready from the youth, the youth conference? Not the youth conference. Youth Council. Sorry, thanks, Scott. The Youth Council. Mobility groups. We've done development sessions at the library. We've done sessions at what used to be at the Mexborough Business Park. We've done certainly the contract has gone into schools. Adie's project manager on the scheme in Mexborough. He's been into schools doing working on development options for schools, getting them involved in it. So we do a lot of that community involvement. And as I say, the scheme was based around a master plan exercise, which was done over a 2-year period prior to the injection of the funding. So yeah, We could always do more. I suspect on Mexborough, we've probably done more in Mexborough than we've ever done. Because the schemes were so diverse, there was different groups had different ideas of what to do. So we've done a lot, and we could do more, sure.
And then finally on that, then, just like I say, I've lived this experience in Stainforth. One of the criticisms I had about the shop front, there didn't seem to be a plan in terms of what to do, and it weren't also very clear what the funding was available for. And that's one of the reasons why some shop owners never got involved with it and took the funding up. Have you made sure that the shop owners understand exactly what they're entitled to? Because I know in Stainforth there was supposed to be no curtains, the shutters, but effectively it looks like some of the shutters have actually ended up being included in the funding. That was one thing that some shop owners didn't necessarily want to take up. And also the effect of the highway being shut one direction for 36 weeks. Is that going to also be the case in more ends? Because that also has, it's nice giving the shop a nice front, but if it's going to shut it for 36 weeks, then it has a negative effect on business.
In some cases, especially in the conservation areas, what they can do has to be governed under planning. So in some areas they can't have shutters because it's a planning constraint. In more ends, those schemes are all done. There'll be no impact on accessibility around more ends. Mexborough, they clearly will. There's already issues. Well, we've basically done the whole high street and it's affected. We've had no significant complaints from people saying it's affecting our business. But this is one of the dichotomies we have. People want to invest the money into a place, but if you're redoing the road, you're redoing the street light, and you're redoing the paving, then there has to have an impact on access. To a certain degree, you have to kind of suck that up whilst the scheme's going on, and hopefully you'll see the benefits on its completion. I don't know the answer to how we do major improvements without impacting on access. It's a difficult one. As far as so the shopfront improvement scheme shouldn't be impacted in Mexborough on that. So I don't know if I've covered all your points there, sorry.
Yeah, I've got some more to add, but over to you, Frank. That was sort of extra questions.
Thank you, Neil. Are there any questions? Councillor Khan first. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. It's not a question that I'd planned before. It's just something which has come up from following on from your questions, Chair. Maybe Scott or Neil, between you can answer it. I'm just a little bit confused with the questions which have been put forward by the Chair in relation to allotments. Is there something which the panel are not aware of, or something the Chair is aware of, that we are planning on disposing of allotment sites? And he's referencing Secretary of State and other statutory organisations and the disposal of those. Is there something which we've got planned that we don't know of? Is there something in the medium to long term, or it's the first time?
No, categorically not. The allotments are the allotments. They're leased to the allotments committee. We are investing money in to improve them for the local community and beyond. There are no plans for changes, and if there was, we wouldn't know anyway. There won't be.
Thank you, Neil. And the other question, Chair referenced the Environment Agency. Is there some involvement from the Environment Agency on some of the allotment sites which might lead to any kind of involvement from them, or any kind of disposal, something that we don't know of, or I don't know of, certainly?
I don't think the Environment Agency would have any involvement with allotments as such. They tend to be involved, obviously, in things like waste transfer stations or certain things which have environmental impacts from the industries that are being run on there. So yeah, I'm not aware of that.
We've got planning consent for the schemes, and where appropriately within the planning guidance, the Environment Agency would have been consulted, and we've got planning consent, so there are no issues with the Environment Agency. No.
Thank you, Chair.
Jon, you require a question?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. When it comes to the shop fronts, do we have a theme in place? I know it's a bit related to the previous question, but do we have a theme in place? Because sometimes if you leave them to their own devices, they become a bit mismatched and so on. Is there any requirement whatsoever for the shops to organize their fronts in a certain way?
Not specifically. I think some shops have, particularly like the multinationals, they have strict guidance on. We can't enforce them unless it's under a conservation area to do a certain style of shop front. Certainly, if we do the shop fronts around the market, the units, then they will be coordinated within time. But when you've got a large high street, branding them right through would be much beyond the kind of limits of this scheme.
If you do pay for it, though, you should be able to say what you want with it, though.
Well, we've tried to encourage, as come back to the early question, tried to encourage shop fronts. Shop fronts, when we first started this, were very reluctant to do it. They thought they were going to get themselves into debt. They thought they were going to take on liabilities. They didn't understand the processes under which they were signing stuff off. They didn't know how to engage a contractor. That's why we simplified it for them, and that's why the take-up did increase very much in Stainforth beyond those early sceptical days. So we go in and say, tell us what you want, doing it. We try not to be too prescriptive, because these are areas that are, some of these shops are kind of just barely struggling to keep open in some cases. And sometimes we do want to be over restrictive and say, oh, you can have the money, but only if you do it, in corporate green, and it has to have your signage done in this shape and form. We wouldn't have got the take-up, and you might have got a corporate image for about 1 in 15, 1 in 20 down the road. So what we've said, look, here's an opportunity for you to improve the elevation of your shop front. In an ideal world, I think it would be great if we could do that. In these communities, I think it's probably unlikely and probably overly ambitious. The take-up would have been slow. Certainly when we've talked to some of them in the past, and we have to handhold them and babysit them through this process. It is an extensive process to go through. It took a long time just to do the dozen we did in Stainforth. This is 100, and Aidy's doing this, so he's already got my sympathy on that. It is a big process. So, and if the door's not fitting and the security's poor and it's leaking down the front and the windows hanging out, I think that's the priority. But I understand the purpose of making. I think in some places we could have been a bit more forceful on that. More in Mexico, we haven't been able to do that, and that's just being honest, but understanding the purpose of your question.
I will add to that the uptake. Do we have numbers on it? And if there's a low uptake, will we be informed of that so we can advise and help the constituents if needed?
Yeah. First tranche is quite a high uptake. What we've had actually is the opposite of that. We've had people go on the edge of the retail core say, well, why aren't we included? So we've extended it actually, because we knew some of the multinationals wouldn't take it up, and because they have framework contractors and have standard frontages. So we've extended it to the extent of the schemes. Wherever we stop it, next door will say, why can't we involve? So we've extended them, then next door to them. So at the moment, we've got a defensible position. This is in the red line boundary of the scheme. If there isn't a take-up and there is spare funding, then what I'll do, I'll go back to Cabinet, go out to Council, or certainly portfolio, and say, could we look at extending it another 50 yards either way, or can we look to invest it elsewhere? We don't like giving money back. We try to spend every penny and a bit more. So once we know the full take-up, but like I say, it's a long process, got over 100 to do. I don't know where we are on AD. Do you know off the top of your head how many we got signed up? But we expect to do the full 100. I'd be surprised if we don't.
If possible, if you could pass it on to councillors at the end of it, if there isn't enough uptake, so we can help you guys in that sense.
Yeah, we'll be talking to the local councillors at the time. If it becomes to a point where we haven't got take up, then we'd talk to anybody that help us. But certainly the local councils would be involved in that, and we do update them on progress on the scheme on a kind of bi-monthly basis at the moment. And we, in addition to meeting with the business forum, we had a meeting with them a couple of weeks ago. So we do have a lot of consultation, and we do monitor progress. And if there was an issue like that, we would certainly highlight it.
Thank you. Councillor Cox, you.
Thank you, Chair. Both projects, really. Question is, do we know if there's any planned roadworks or road maintenance to do after the projected scheme? Because what we see, same as we've seen in places like Stainforth, in town centre, the works will get done, and then somebody will come along and dig it up and then put tarmac down. So have we got assurance that that's not going to happen?
So there is a statutory process in place to stop that happening. So it's called the RAS rules, so the Roads and Street Works Act. Utilities, when we're going to do a scheme, we inform them that we're going to do it, and they can't touch that scheme for 12 months. However, it's a flawed system, because any utility company will just say it's emergency work and they'll go in and do it. Yes, it is frustrating. Yes, could it be better coordinated? Absolutely. But it's very difficult. Most of the roadworks aren't the council roadworks, they're utility works done under their rights, under their act and legislation. It is infuriating for them to do that. And we try our very, very best to make sure they don't. But it's not flawless.
Would it be worth thinking that we use a material that they use as well then, so that we don't see patching all over the place?
What you tend to find, they can go back and do what's called a temporary reinstatement, which is usually poor. They have to go back and do a permanent reinstatement. And so what they should do is go back and replace like for like. The difficult where it becomes a problem for them is if we do it's like a bus lane in red, and they come back with red, and ours was dark red, and there's a scarlet red. The enforcement on that, probably needs to be better. But once they've done it, it becomes difficult. But yeah, there is a process under which they have to do a permanent restatement, like for like.
Just going on to Market one then in Mexborough, and are MAM still leaseholders? Do they intend to carry on being leaseholders? Are they going to drop out of that lease? And what are the benefits to MAM over this development?
So the proposal approved by Cabinet, if we move the market traders into the units and repurpose the market hall, then MAM's involvement in Mexborough Market would cease at that point. If we don't manage to do that, then MAM would stay involved with Mexborough in the interim.
Would that need a new lease, drawing up a new overhead lease for all of the involvement with MAM, or would it just be removing them from Mexborough? I would like to think, because they're both intertwined, it would need a new lease that then potentially could be revisited.
No, it would simply be an amendment of the lease that removed Mexborough as part of the original lease. It wouldn't be a redrawing of the lease. It would be an amendment to that. And if the council have already supported it and MAM have agreed it in principle, I really don't think it's an issue. I don't see it as an opportunity to re-engage the whole process. No, that's not what the intention is.
I mean,
as far as I'm aware.
What we can do, councillor, is check that with our legal team. But what Neil's telling you is exactly right. MAM at the minute look after the Central Market in the city centre and Mexborough, not Rosington. CDC just look after Rosington. As Neil says, once the scheme's implemented, then technically you wouldn't be running a market there. It would be more like a high street venture. But I'll get that double checked with our legal team for you, Steve.
Isaiah, you have a question?
Just wanted to ask a question on the consultation. You say you've consulted with the town council. I know from personal experience, town councils can be sometimes a bit disconnected with local people. Could you detail what direct consultation has taken place with the people of Moor Ends?
In Moor Ends, all the schemes we're doing were brought off the master plan, which was done through a full community consultation exercise. We've also done 2 community events at one of the halls there. We also had a specific one in relation to the pavilion. We had a specific one where all of the allotment tenants came, which was standing room only. And we've pretty much, because the pavilion and some of the schemes where they do asset approval, they'll become under town council ownership, so we've had to go through town council approval process as well. And we've obviously, anybody affected, any stakeholder affected, where we've done a scheme outside someone's house, then we go and knock on the door of a shop and we speak to them about not only what they want doing as part of the shop and improvement scheme, any improvements outside, what the implications are, and if we can facilitate them. Sometimes we do works in part just so to maintain access for them if they've got a delivery, and also pick up any accommodation works that we can include into the scheme if we need to tie into a particular drive, or they were planning to do new shutters or change the door around, then we work with them so directly on that. But the actual scheme proposal came out of the master plan that was already been signed off by the previous master plan agreement process.
Yeah, I've just got a second one, just from the shopfront improvement scheme in Stainforth. Have you had any data that's shown that it's led to more footfall or use of the businesses on the high street?
No, I can't say we have done that. I don't think we do enough about that kind of post scrutiny of the outcomes of the schemes. I do know certainly from speaking to people on site that everybody had one done and is really pleased it's been done and seen the improvement. We've had no negative impact of it. As far as monitoring footfall in areas like that, where they haven't got footfall cameras and that kind of thing, it would be difficult to do. I think most would be anecdotal. I think the Mexborough one would be one where it could warrant a scheme on something like that, where we do footfall coverage. And again, it's not just the footfall. The footfall can be really high, but if no one goes into a shop and spends any money, so it tends to be footfall included by increased spend, and you can usually tell that by if on the vacancy units. So if the vacant came less down, we'd see that as a success. If they went up, then we'd want to know why.
Councillor Dodds, I believe you have a question.
Thank you, Chair. Might seem a bit of a petty subject to start off with, but you spoke about murals. I know we're getting one on Mexborough Library. Am I to understand that it's somebody from Manchester coming to paint them?
The artist we've engaged is an internationally renowned artist called Peaches, which is quite a coup for the UK, for Doncaster. There is a massive group of people out the country who are really into this public art, and they Instagram everything, and people will come and visit them, and it'll increase people to come on and come to Mexborough that would never come. So tying in that international artist is a really good way of marketing Mexborough in the centre. So yes, there is a internationally renowned artist, but I think there's also other community groups involving children that we've got a coordinator undertaking this work. I don't know the details of the proposal now. Whatever they come up with, though, will have to go through an approval process. We'll have to. It won't be. Oh, this is something they're going to do. It'd have to be in keeping, and they get quite a scope. You know, it's got to be something that the community support, that the council are happy to fund, that it meets the general requirement. But like most things in art, they're subjective, aren't they? Not everybody will like it, I suspect. But where we've done it in the town centre around here, people mostly like it. And the one opposite the train station, people pretty much like that. Apart from Steve, obviously, because he's shaking his head. But you can't please all the people all the time. As councillors, you'll know that. You don't need me to tell you.
I just feel it's a great shame that we aren't promoting somebody from Doncaster. Also, the money spent on those wages would have gone back into our economy instead of somewhere else in the country. And I think that's a great shame also.
We're very cognizant of the local supply chains, involving local people, involving the communities close to the scheme as possible. There's sometimes, though, when you have to step out of that and say, look, we've got an opportunity here. The outcome here is about marketing. If we can get an internationally renowned one, the benefit for the community is greater than just one person put in. And also, we tend to find, particularly on something like that, they don't have the skill set, the insurances, the ability to and experience to take on something like, because even something like a wall art, like on the side of the Montreal Park, they'll need scaffold, they'll need structural, they'll need planning consent. You're talking to a local person, they haven't got that knowledge and experience. That's quite a risk. But your overall point about Doncaster first on jobs, Doncaster first on supply chains, we absolutely do that, and we actually wed them into the contract on social values. But we can't have a closed shop, I suppose.
Neil, I believe you have a second question.
Thank you, Chair. Sticking in Mexborough, is MAM putting anything into this project?
No, because MAM, if this project gets implemented in its full, we'll cease any involvement, so there'll be no need for MAM to put anything into it.
Just picking up on this internationally renowned artist, what sort of money are we looking at paying him?
There's an amount in the programme budget for that. I can't remember off the top of my head. 100,000, does that seem right? About 100,000? But that's including all the development work, all of the community consultation, all of the workshops.
That's fine. That's fine. You just told me how much you were. 100,000. That's fine.
Three meals. Yeah.
So, because if we just block a drain pipe off Banks, he'll do it for now. But joking apart, the reason I asked that is that I know. Can you remember the Spirit of Doncaster that war created by some artist? I think it cost 25 grand or something like that. And that's the kind of thing that if a student at Doncaster College had come up with that, it makes them into an internationally renowned artist. And that's picking up on what these guys are saying is there's an opportunity here for somebody in Doncaster to make a name for themselves, and I think we're missing that opportunity. So, hey, that's what we've got. But moving on from that, going back to what we're saying about roads being closed in Stainforth, they were closed for two lots for 17 weeks. And Councillor Cox picked up on the fact that are you going to work together and make sure that it's done once? I know, first of all, they shut the road. I know people who work in the trade of doing block paving, they dig holes in roads for a living. And that road could have been better managed with traffic lights for a start, and it would have cost thousands of pounds less than what it's cost us for traffic management. I know that there were guys sat there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, making sure cones were put back when kids moved them. So that's one thing I do know, there'll be money saved. Second thing is, within 2 days of the road being cleared, bearing in mind it being there for 17 weeks, Doncaster Council come out with a pair of traffic lights, shut the road with traffic lights, and replaced a gully. They had 17 weeks to fix that gully, Doncaster Council. Not Yorkshire Water, not electric company, it was Doncaster Council who did it. So, are we sure that our people are certainly on board with this? Forget about the infrastructure people. Are our people on board to make sure that all these different portfolio holders are making sure that they get this finished off in one hit rather than having to revisit it after?
Well, that clearly that example's poor, and if it happened in the way you've described it, then yeah, there's probably very limited justification for it. We try our best to do that, absolutely. We try to make sure everything's coordinated, make sure that we're doing schemes. We very much try to leave a job done. Certainly under these schemes, when we've done some like after travel schemes, but we do the footpaths, we do the roads, we do the drains, we do the street lighting. We try to do everything to leave it so we don't have to come back to that. Will there be examples where mistakes are made, or things are unknown? Possibly. I would find that particular example very disappointing, and it shouldn't happen. You're right, it shouldn't happen.
Well, moving on from that, they've just done that A19 traffic lights, and Frank will nod in a minute. They left black plastic bags over at speed limit signs. It took them 2 days of a course of a week to put a sign back up. They put a sign up on one side of the road, they shut the road down to do it, and then it took another week to do the other side. I don't know if something had been pinched, because when I went past first time, everything were there from to do it, and then second time they stood there scratching their heads as though somebody pinched something from job. These jobs should be completed in a day, not taking a week. You see private contractors doing work like this a lot faster than our guys. And is there anything that we're doing to try and make them more efficient and make sure they're on top of the job every time?
Well, we use a lot of private contractors. The contractors out in Mexborough now are private contractors. Yeah, and there is project manager oversight. I'm not responsible for our direct labour organisation, and we use them on a scheme where it's appropriate. So it wouldn't be my role to ensure that, but absolutely, where we find deficiencies, we expose them and we ask them to be corrected.
Any further questions, members? I've just got one for you, Neil. We've recently had the incident at Glasgow with the vaping shops and the fact that it was possibly an accident waiting to happen. What kind of control do we have over these vaping shops and the fact that they are quite volatile, and we all know that the batteries can actually explode?
It's not an area I've any knowledge in. I'm sorry, Chair. I'll try and find out who would be. It's not something I'm really in a position to comment on.
Chair, I think just Chris, it'd probably be licensing, so probably Claire Bignell's team would be the ones who are involved in, I suppose, making sure retailers are being safe, yeah. So we can pick that via Claire.
Well, my final question then is going back to the street art. In Aston, we had a street artist do the boathouse. It cost 30 quid for the paint. He's a local lad. We also have a lady who lives in Campsall who is a professional street artist. So I don't see why we have to go out to Manchester or beyond when we've got the talent here. We have an art college. Surely we should be approaching these people and not putting it out and lining other people's pockets.
Point taken. I think something we'll certainly consider in greater detail next time we do something like this.
Thank you, Neil. It could be a recommendation that we have the talent in the area. We should be using it.
So, Chris, can we just be clear on what the actual recommendation is as well, please?
Sorry, Cam, that we investigate and use local talent. Clearly, what appears to have happened here is that they've gone to a multinational organisation or individual who at 100,000.
Chair, I'll feed back through my processes through either through dealing with the mayor or dealing with the portfolio holder, and say that Scrutiny were expressed in future that sit particularly on areas like public art, we utilise local talent.
Steve, please.
So I will pass those messages on that in future where we've got schemes like where public art that we should utilise local talent wherever possible.
Thank you. Right, on to recommendations. Now that the discussion has finished, I would like to move to the recommendations. Does the panel feel like it has reviewed the information provided today? Can I ask if there are any additional recommendations? If so, what are they, and what is the supporting reason for the recommendation?
Yeah, just to make your comments there official, to recommend that we go out and seek local talent for the painting of the murals in Moor End.
Thank you, Councillor. Are there any further? Is it? Are there any other recommendations? Are we all in agreed? Right, we'll move back to item 6, which is the waterfront and Waterdale development. Could I ask if Mr. Scott Cardwell would introduce the item, please?
Okay, thank you, Chair. So I'm going to take the waterfront area first, and then it'll go into Waterdale, and more than happy to take questions at the end of the session, if that's okay. Cheers, Steve. Okay, so the waterfront area first. This first slide is really to show the strategic context of the site, and that it is actually teased out as a key location for regeneration within our recently produced city strategy. The high level kind of proposal on that is a mixed use living and working leisure area. Other key things that this is supposed to achieve is restoring the prominence of the riverside as a public destination and movement route. So any subsequent scheme should allow for that. And also, I think one of the challenges is connecting in stronger this area to the city centre across Churchway, as it can be quite a circuitous route to get down there. Okay, this slide highlights the site itself, so you can see the red line boundary there. It's approximately 23 acres that we're focusing in on. The site does have many benefits to it. Obviously, it's close to the rail station and transport interchange, so you're talking just over half a mile, I think, to this. So it is a well connected site. It is classed as a mixed use allocation in the local plan, which means you could have a selection of uses on there that could be seen appropriate, as long as they are harmonious to each other and not causing a problem. It has had a long history of industrial use on that site. I know when I first started at the council many years ago, it was I think British Gas had it, and it was a gasworks on there. That built on the old Victorian gasworks that used to be there. It's previously also had a toffee factory on there, sewage pumping station, settlement and treatment works, and also a scrapyard. So you can imagine the site is heavily contaminated through those previous industrial uses, and it does include things like cyanide and arsenic and lead on the site. Basically, if we wanted to try and bring this site forward, you would need to do some remediation on it, which is the step that we've taken, because if you put it out to market, it'd just be too economic to bring forward because of the amount that a company would have to not just spend on doing the development, but then bringing it up to a standard that people could access and live in, really. Just to be clear about remediation as well. If you are restoring things for, say, residential uses, where you might get people's gardens who might want to grow carrots or God knows what in the garden, it has to be done to a certain standard. You can't just kind of put blacktop over it and say, right, we're capping it all off. So that's the need really to regenerate the site, to try and bring remediate the site in order that it does stand a chance of coming forward for a regeneration site. So we have just concluded, in February, the remediation project. And in effect, this slide gives you the overview of the works that's taking place down there. So there's been site-wide excavation over that site area that I've shown in red, down to 2 metres in order to remove the contaminants, and then tested soils backfilled to reinstate it so that it would be safe to end users. And as I've just mentioned, it is being done to a level that it is for more sensitive redevelopment uses as well, which could be people's using for gardens or growing things on there. What we have got is an interim scheme, which is now the site's been remediated, is to bring it back into an interim public open space until the site is ultimately regenerated. The budget for the scheme was just shy of 14.5 million, which involved a blend of levelling up funding and gain share monies. In terms of outcomes that or outputs that the scheme has delivered, There was a target of 700k. So this is something whenever the council's doing contracts, we do build in social key performance indicators to try and benefit the borough. So there was actually a local spend with subcontractors, if you like, of 975,000 against a target of 700k. So that was overperforming. Also, local people employed on the project, there was a target of 8. The company Keltbury, who are obviously a national company, employed 16 local people on there, which is good to see, which is double the amount actually targeted. And there's also been some in-kind contributions as well to Seed Cadets, Riverside Care and Askham Miners as well. So timescales for the project was remediation started in December 2024 and it was completed in February 2026. We have delayed opening of the site because there are a few minor issues to sort out with some of the drainage on the site, which you obviously have to wait and see what happens once the land's been reinstated. So there's a couple of bits that will need a bit of a kind of minor French drain going in. And also we're just trying to keep the public off at the moment and to give chance for the grass to establish itself. But you will see from some of the imaging, if you've been down the site, and I was on there last week, the grass has taken phenomenal, but we're just going to give it a chance to dry out before it is opened up for that interim period. Okay, so talking about the interim period, this is the interim landscaping plan. So if you did go down to the site and you've ever been on the waterfront site before, it's almost unrecognisable how this remediation scheme has transformed the site and opened it up. So you've all had copies of this, and obviously what we've tried to do with the landscaping is stick to grass. There are a few trees which have been planted, but in effect we don't want to be planting anything that when a detailed regeneration schemes comes through that we'd have to be abortively pulling these trees out. So we've tried to put a landscaping scheme on there which will hold true and be retained in terms of tree planting when a revised scheme is built on the site. So this slide really just shows you some work in process and what we're left with now. And you can see the extent of the works that's been done on site remediating it has been massive. However, the interim landscaping scheme that's got on there has been very, very successful, and it will be interesting to open this area up for public access. And obviously, as I've said in the city strategy, it is hoped that this area will be regenerated where the public, this wouldn't be almost like a gated community. This would be something that the public of Doncaster can enjoy and have access to the kind of waterside frontage on there, and that would have to hold true with any regeneration scheme that comes through. So just updating on the potential regeneration scheme, we are working with a developer who has interest in the site. So we have had a period of exclusivity with this developer for them to start to draw up proposals and importantly secure the investment and partnerships that would be needed to bring forward a site like this. So this involves you can see there a schematic which I think was put out in the public probably about 12 months ago. So the company we have been working with were known as Horizon Park Group, and they are working to deliver a mixed-use scheme on the site with TV and digital content studios, a digital auditorium, a data centre, some residential taking place on the site, and a hotel and hospitality. So just to orientate yourself, if you're okay, I'm just going to get up and just kind of point on this slide some of these. So it's seen that if you like, the front part of the site would be where the digital cluster is, and you'd see more of the residential taking on the back part of the site. Obviously the marina basin lends itself to kind of hotel and some kind of leisure uses around that. So this is just a high-level master plan at this stage. So the company that we're working with is still working on that. So we've not got formal planning application in. So it is early stages, if you like, on the regeneration. side of things, but it does involve a multi-storey car park on there, because obviously we have got a well-used car park on this part as well. So we'd be wanting to see that with any regeneration scheme that would come through. Okay, so that's just a whistle-stop tour of where we are with Waterfront. I'll just go through Waterdale and then I'll take any questions. So again, putting it in strategic context, the Waterdale Centre is also mentioned in the city strategy in the Beating Art section, which is all to do with retail business and now potentially residential coming back in to take the place of a lot of the vacant retail. So the Waterdale is seen as a major opportunity to bring forward residential and commercial development. I think what we've seen is a lot of investment taking place in the civic and cultural quarter where we sat now. You've obviously seen the regeneration that's taken around the station forecourt as well. This area we're talking about now with Waterdale and Colonnade sits in between that. So if you like, it's bookended by regeneration. This is why it's really important now to get in there and try and bring forward this for regeneration. As that part of the town is tired, to say the least. If you've walked around Waterdale, you can see a lot of it is demolished. If you go through the Colonnades area, a lot of that is unoccupied as well. So strategically, that area needs gripping, and hence the need for this this proposal. So this slide again highlights the two areas I'm talking about. So the one at the top is Colonnades. The one at the bottom is the Waterdale area. And again, you can see the relationship with where Cast is, which is where we are now, and also the station area. They literally bookend this kind of corridor into this part of the city, and therefore it's really important we do try and pull together a scheme to regenerate that area, because we're not seeing the private sector coming forward off their own back and investing into that area at the minute, and it's going to take a bit of intervention from the council to do that. Okay, so in terms of regeneration scheme, the proposal is that this council lease the building that you can see there. So if you walk through, just to orientate yourself, if you walked through the Waterdale Centre, this is the new building which is on the right-hand side, which is opposite Greg's. And that building was built by St Modwins, who were the former owner of the Waterdale Centre. And it never had an end occupier there. It was just built speculatively, and it's been vacant ever since. So the proposal is for the council to take a head lease on this, sublease then to Rotherham, Doncaster and South Humber NHS Foundation, which would be Ardash, and potentially DBTH at a later stage, if that could be, if they've got potential uses to go in there, to use this building as a Health on the High Street initiative. What that would do then is it would transfer over a substantive part of Waterdale into CDC's ownership, so the council's ownership, whereby we could then look to be bringing forward a regeneration scheme on the side. So this next slide, which I'll get up and help you orientate yourself on, but this is the building that I'm referring to, the 25,000 foot new building. So we head lease that, then sublease it to Health, and what would happen is all of this area, that is green, including the Undercroft car park, would then transfer over to the council, and then we've got control of it. We can obviously try and stack it up and take it out to the market and try and procure a developer to bring forward a regeneration scheme on that. So it's a sizable strategic site, and at the minute, as you know, if you walk through that, you can see from that side, a lot of it is derelict. There are some residential and commercial properties on the kind of street frontage there, as well that would have to come over. But it's hoped that once this does transfer, we would able to take forward a scheme to procure a developer to regenerate it in line with the city strategy. So there is some potential for this to have some green space in as well, because the city centre has got open space in it, but we haven't got much green space in our city centres. It tends to be on the kind of large parks that are on the periphery, like Elmfield or Townfields. So it would be nice to have a scheme in there that would bring some of that kind of feel into the area, and that would be something we try and pursue with a developer. So the next slide just shows the colonnades area, which is broadly built up of office space at the minute, and then you've got the kind of commercial element at the on the bottom part of the half of the colonnades there, which again is underutilised. And we're just seeing that both of the sites together could form a substantial regeneration area that would really transform the look and feel of the city centre. Okay, hope that's helped give a bit of context. I'm more than happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Scott. Excuse me. Thank you for your presentation. Just before we carry on with questions, I have a message from Councillor Dennis that reads, I want to thank Scott and other officers for their time last week showing town ward councillors around the waterfront site. The transformation from the previous site is amazing, and the interim space will be greatly appreciated by residents. And that's from Councillor Dennis. Just before we go into question, can I just ask one regarding the remedial works? Was there any form of funding from the previous occupiers?
For the remedial works for waterfront, yeah, no, it was all come through. I think it was a levelling up fund round one, which is government funding, and then gain share was the other element, which you've all got copies of the presentation. That was money which came through South Yorkshire MCA.
So even though the gas company has left us with half of the mess, they've made no form of contribution? No,
yes, yeah. And again, just to kind of build on that, because the site has been vacant for a while. When we had a development agreement several years ago with Muse Developments to actually build this building we sat in, so regenerate the civic and cultural quarter. As part of that agreement, they had options to draw down some land at Lakeside for development and also at Waterfront. So technically, it tied it up that we couldn't do anything with that land while it was in that agreement. Obviously, we finished the agreement with Muse, and then that site's come forward. And you may remember the history around the Waterfront was, at that time then, we were working with the local health organisations to bring it forward for a new hospital. But unfortunately, government pulled the promised funding on that. So off the back of that, we're now trying to take forward that site.
Thanks for the explanation, Scott. Could I call on Councillor Wood for the first question?
Thank you, Chair. The city seems disjointed. How is this going to be addressed to ensure all areas flow together where the pedestrian is going to be king? What's the timeline to ensure the Golden Triangle is complete?
Yeah. I think frustratingly, well, certainly for me as somebody being involved for regeneration for over 20 years, is the lack of a significant fund to holistically regenerate your city centre. The funding tends to be reliant on government funding coming, and also the government funding tends to come with requirements that you have to spend on a certain thing. So it means that you have to try and get what funding is available and do what the funding requirements are, which sometimes mean that you can't always stitch things up. And this is why under previous funding regimes we've been able to do the civic and cultural quarter, and then other funding regimes we've been able to do the railway station. And so you end up with this bookend with a bit in the middle that needs something. We're now looking at using some of the CRP, so Community Regeneration Partnership funding, to help kickstart some of this work to try and do Waterdale and Colonnades as well. So wherever possible we try and do that, but it is dependent on what the tethers are on the funding. It is always important to have an up-to-date city strategy and a master plan that sets a framework for development to come forward. Because again, it's not always it's not all a council-led thing. You would want private sector developers to come forward as well. But sometimes when the economy is struggling, that element does slow down. So we do have a cohesive plan around how to bring forward the development, but the actual delivery and implementation of it is reliant on available funding streams, and sometimes that can mean certain things coming before others depending on the funding. I think in terms of timescales, where you're talking about the kind of golden triangle bit, which is the kind of retail core that we're sat in, for the Waterdale elements, I would expect it will be between 4 to 5 years to actually start the process in terms of procuring a developer, gaining pre-application advice, putting in a planning application, getting a planning approval, and then actually putting out a contract, starting that build. It's probably going to be 4 years, I think, before we'd see, if we started tomorrow, it will probably be this time in 2030 when the colonnades and Waterdale will be completed with a fair wind. I appreciate that the beating art does include a bigger area, so it does include things like, I suppose, Hallgate and the French Gate and things like that. If we get subsequent funding coming through that we can utilise to enhance those areas, clearly under the current city strategy, they will be seen as a priority area to go forward. But I think for this big chunk, which will be Waterdale and Colonnades, I think you're probably talking around 4 years, I think, from starting the process of procuring to actually cutting a ribbon on it, so to speak.
So, just me again. So taking into consideration what we just said, and how we ideally want to be moving cars away from city centre, is there any plans short term to be promoting getting rid of cars in city centre, to be replacing them with buses, or having key locations for cars to park and getting some sort of infrastructure in place to support the pedestrians around the city?
Yeah. I mean, there has been quite a lot of work done on our city centre roads. I mean, you've got to be careful because you still have to have accessibility for loading and storage of existing businesses. If we just suddenly went, right, okay, there's no cars allowed in the city centre, the traders would have a big problem. So we do have to facilitate that. But what we have tried to do, and this is things like highway schemes on, say, Silver Street or Hallgate, we've tried to shrink down the road, amplify the pavements, and bring in one-way systems or certain points of the day where you can't actually travel with a vehicle down them, to try and give more of the power, if you like, back to the pedestrians so that they've got a more accessible city centre. But it is always a balance to try and ensure that you've still got buses that can get into those areas or close to them, or you have got parking or abilities for traders to retail as well. But it's always got to be a consideration, and also about how people move around those areas as well, trying to look for ways to make that as easy as possible.
Thank you for that, Neil. Regarding the Waterdale development, the old cinema, the Odeon, this is part of the town's heritage. What is actually happening with this area?
Well, it's not in council ownership. I think it's owned by Lazarus, and they did, it's many years ago, I think they actually got planning approval for, so when the cinema came down, I think they did get permission for almost like a mixed-use building going on there, which did involve office, and there might have been some apartments in there as well. But clearly it was never economically viable for them to bring forward at that time, and it's never been done since. So it's just, since the cinema came down, it has just been a open surface car park. I'm not aware of any new plans coming in for them to regenerate it or put another revised planning proposal in at this stage. But clearly, it's not something that the council owns and controls, so it's not something that we've been able to put a regeneration scheme on.
Will Lazarus not being invited to take part with the regeneration?
Well, and again, if we've got government money, you cannot give that to a private company to regenerate it, because there's all kinds of things around. Yeah, it's not something that you can do. There is a limit to what you can do in relation to that. So I'm more than happy to mention to Lazarus that obviously this panel is concerned about the former Odeon site, and see if they do have any revised plans. I'm happy to take that chair and get in touch with them and get a response back that I'll send through Christine to everyone.
If you would, Chair, because naturally it gives a poor image of Doncaster. Right, moving on to the waterfront. The waterfront will be a key location for regeneration of the city centre. It is noted that provision for 8 coaches is proposed, together with various leisure activities such as fishing. My question is, there appears to be no facilities, no public toilets or anything like that. What are these people going to do?
There is, I think it's 8 coach spaces in the existing car park area that have been allotted. As I said, if that car park was redeveloped, then there will be a need to put some other form of alternative car parking on there, which you would think would suit a multi-storey use car park. The use, I think there's 5 fishing pegs that are going up there that have been done to DDA compliant, and they've worked very much with I think the local fishing Doncaster Angling Society to make sure they are of reasonable quality. I don't think it's thought that toilets will be appropriate down there, given that this will be an interim period. I'm happy to take this back to the teams and get a steer whether that's ever been considered. But again, this landscaping that's put on there is really to ensure that the site looks tidy, is maintained in terms of the grass being cut until a regeneration scheme comes forward on that site. I know we do have some more formal parks which do have toilets in, but we also do have more formal parks which don't have public toilets in as well. So I'm just assuming that's why that's not been provided there, but I can double check.
I just find it strange that you've got parking for 8 coaches, which could be coming from quite an away area, and no facilities for those people that, you know, may need them straight away.
Yeah, I think the coaches have always parked in that area, and it tends to be, I think, people coming to the markets or shopping in the centres.
I think you'll appreciate, Scott, that hygiene is a major thing, major concern in some towns, and the lack of facilities, you know, prevents people from, shall we say, using the right facilities. But moving on, shall we, Rebecca, you have a question?
I have, yeah, Chair, thank you. Scott, just a quick question. You know, you mentioned the Waterdale for the NHS building.
Yeah.
Would it not make more sense to put something like that in the old Debenhams, where you've got the bus station, so everyone's got access to it and can come in on a bus? You've also got the car parking system already there, and the car park already there for easy parking, and just have people to come and have bloods or x-rays or eyesights or any other things actually in the main centre of the city centre with the parking facilities and infrastructure already there.
Yeah, Councillor Booth, I completely agree. It makes perfect sense. All I know is health colleagues have done a tour of the city centre to look at options. Obviously, the former Debenhams building is within the Frenchgate Centre, which again is obviously not owned by the council, but they have had the opportunity, health, of discussing that with the owners. So I'm just assuming that nothing ever came of that, because we did do a tour of the city centre of potential sites, and the Frenchgate was one area which was looked at by health. So who's to say, as the health landscape changes in terms of how care is provided, that might not come to fruition? Because totally agree. It's a super accessible point. It makes sense in a vacant unit to use it for that. So,
the amount of footfall that goes through French Gate, everybody could access that. Who comes up to the Waterdale? Who's going to walk up to the Waterdale? You know, where you're going to park for a start. You can't park in underground car park because it's horrendous. It needs bulldozing. It's unsafe.
Yeah, well, there's obviously a COA right next to it, which is 850 spaces, multi-storey, which is open and is underutilised at the minute. So there's plenty of car parking in that part. I think.
You just don't get your buses out there, do you, anymore?
Yeah. Well, the terminus has moved to the other side. So yeah, I do take your point. I think we've got to kind of view this as, and I think health are keen on coming into that area because it is an accessible location if they do go into water, much more so than what they've got where they currently are, where it is. I mean, I'm a Doncaster resident. It is a challenge to access services there and try and park up. So this should be better. And I think it's viewing it that health are also keen that they're coming in here and they want to see that area regenerated around it. So I think Waterdale will transform itself and hopefully we'd have a very successful health hub in a transformed area that has got a lot of footfall going in, and we do want to try and generate that footfall into there. But your point about the French Gate makes total sense, but it was on the list of options that health were looking at.
Jan, you want a question?
Yes, thank you, Chair. In regards to the budget, the 6.18 million gain share, what year's gain share is that? Because we can't really rely on that if that gain share is going to go to the airport from now on.
Yeah, it's from a previous year. What I will do though is I'll find out the exact thing and feed it back through Chris.
So it's not future gain shares, previous?
No, it's not. It's a time limited sum. It's not something that will be getting a money every year, if you like. It's just been done to.
It's out of 14.49. It's 6.18 million.
Yes.
So it's a big chunk.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Fine. Steve, you have a question?
Thank you, Chair. I've got a couple. We've talked about these subjects before. We've sat in this room, I think Majid was Chair, when we've sat here and we've talked about the offer of waterfront, and it's not going to replicate nor take anything away from the centre. I'm not keen on this city bit, you know.
Yeah.
But if we're going to put entertainment and leisure and everything over there, are we making the footprint too big that people are not necessarily going to use it? I was of an understanding that we owned a ransom strip within there, and a certain company, we've ended up maybe having to pay him some money to take things off there to get part of that land. Is that correct? Like yours just said there, the funding for that, there was the levelling up funding that came through Simca. There is a clause within the Cabinet decision that says that funding has to be used for the purpose that it's drawn down for, which is to be re-landscaped. Interim didn't fit within it, and I took it up with Debbie Ogg at the time and said, what is the chances of clawback? And she said, well, we're working on it. We don't know. But can you tell me what the potentials of clawback are on that part that's come through Simca? Because I've heard nothing else since. Then when we go into the Waterdale one and colonnades, again, we've talked about in this room about the ownership of it when it were demolished. Why did they demolish it? What was the time frame of demolishing it? Why did the new owners of it go to government to ask for £25 million to open vista, I think the words were, between the railway station and here, which it seems that's what it's trying to create now. Do we, as the authority, get the ownership, or is it part of a lease agreement that the current owners still keep that parcel of land and end up with their funding back like they wanted in first place? What are we going to do with the businesses that are currently in Waterdale such as Little Goat, that will have to go, are we going to recite them? There is, then when we can go to colonnades, what are we doing with colonnades? Are we going to knock it down? Is it going to be demolished and re-landscaped? Don't know. Who owns the land, who owns the buildings behind there? I think you'll find it's the same company that own Waterdale. And that's because I'd done some work with GMB, because when they were kicked out of Mary Woollett, they went to look at something, and then the agent that was sent to show them round were from the company that owns that land. It just seems to me that it's lovely, don't get me wrong, it's great to see things happening, but who are we supporting here? And why are some of the questions that I've asked previously never been answered? I mean, Majid, bless you, when we discuss about this and the enforcement of it, I believe, if I'm right, the comment was, well, we looked at it but couldn't afford to buy it. Well, where are we now? I'm lost. I'm sorry, my head's full of rubbish. But this is a conversation that you can see back on YouTube from previous meetings. And we still, what are we doing? I'm confused, Scott. Please enlighten me.
Yeah, because we have answered some of these things before, Steve. So, I've got 7 questions there, but I missed a couple. I know I missed a couple early. So, I'll if you pull me back. So, clawback for the landscaping. I'm not aware of any clawback for landscaping. As far as I'm aware, it's been done on the basis that it is an interim scheme, because ultimately, you wouldn't remediate a site to that standard to leave it as landscaping, because it'd just have to be, people aren't going to grow things on there. They'd be just walking on the paths and playing on it. So there would be a lower level of landscaping that should be done. So I'm assuming, but I will check that, Steve, for you in relation to that. In terms of land ownership, we do own a substantive amount of that, and we have acquired all of the land that is in that 22 acres. So that is now CDC owned. So everything that's been remediated is owned by the council. So there's no other party involved in that red line boundary that we've talked about, which is obviously good for us going forward, because we don't want any barriers to or complications if we are trying to take forward that landscaping. The regeneration scheme with a potential developer.
To pull you back a little bit, it's been purchased then. What we're saying
Yeah.
is that, thank you.
Yeah. So it's all in CDC ownership. So just, there was something else you mentioned, Steve, which unfortunately I missed. So if I just get into the Waterdale stuff, and I'm happy to go back. So Waterdale, why was it demolished? It's not our shopping centre. It was a private owner who decided to demolish it. They didn't apply for demolition. We did have to chase them retrospectively to do that. So we were as frustrated as anybody around it, that we obviously like people to apply for things, and then at least people are aware, and they can go through a proper process where you've got consultees on. So it was retrospectively, we were having to deal with that, Steve. So we can't do anything about it other than chase the owners and say you need to retrospectively apply, which is what we did on it. We do get the ownership of all that area. That and I'll put the plan back up again, Steve, just so you're aware. That one. So everything that's shown on there that's green will be coming over to the council. So to be clear, what would be retained by the current owners are the areas that are in red. So that's the existing kind of area that they've converted to flats. There's a vacant building, obviously, that they're gonna lease out, and then there is the bit where the funeral directors have actually moved into the car park associated with that. They are wanting to convert to flats and put a nursery use in that area at the south of the site that you can see, and the other brown bits have been sold off previously. So all of the green area would be transferring over to CDC under the
Sorry, Scott.
the proposals.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's okay.
transferring under lease or transferring under full ownership?
No, it'd be full ownership. Yeah, it'd be freehold. So it's not a long lease. It will be a freehold transfer of those assets.
Thank you.
And the cabinet report does talk about there will be a period where we'll obviously do due diligence to understand what those assets are and implications, and that kind of goes into to the one of your other questions, which you mentioned, which is like what happens with the current businesses. At the minute, we haven't got a regen scheme for that site. We've obviously got a city strategy that talks about that area being potentially residential led, some kind of open space or park on there, and some kind of commercial in there. But if once the lease is signed and we're in negotiations over that work would then start commencing on that. So I haven't got all the answers about what that site would look like. Obviously, anybody who lives in that site who will be affected, or anybody in commercial property, that would have to be looked at whether they are absorbed into the scheme or relocated. But clearly, that's a process we would have to go through. In terms of colonnades, it's a similar sort of thing with the scheme there. At the minute, it's a mix of office, which is underutilised. There's quite a few council services in there. I think there's one external company in there, and then you've got a lot of vacant units in the commercial bit as was. So again, a scheme's got to be done there, but I would imagine it will involve some conversion to apartments, because that is something that we are seeing a decent market for Doncaster people wanting to buy or rent accommodation in the city centre. And I would think if it's better run commercial units in there, might stand a chance if it's regenerated. But it's a little early to tell. I think obviously if we can get the procurement, if we can get the lease signed and then procurement away, I would imagine in 6 months' time when some work's been done on that, it'd be useful to come back and update this committee on how we're moving on that and give you a bit more detail on it. It's just, we're kind of at the start of this process at the minute. Yeah.
Can I thank you for the information, Scott, but we need to move on. Okay. Rebecca?
I just got one final, and I know, Councillor Cox, you were on about who owns the colonnade. We own all of that colonnades building, so I'm only talking about things happening to the buildings that we own. If there are other parties who own it adjacent, obviously we just have to be careful that we're not having a detrimental impact on those properties. But yeah, colonnades we own, and we do control what could happen to it going forward. Okay.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you for a comprehensive response. Rebecca, did you say you...
It's just a quick one. I don't know if you can answer this, Scott, or not. So last week and the week before, we had a meeting with Graham from Fedra, the battery storage.
Yeah.
And I then met him on Thursday morning this week as well. The question is, he said in the meeting in front of Frank and Carl and a few others, and then he mentioned it again the following week at Arksey, that the company would be putting 5 million back into Doncaster Council every year, as an investment. But I asked him if that could be sort of protected or ring-fenced and go back to the actual villages that it's actually having the impact on. So Bentley, Arksey, Asken, Barnby Dun. And he says, well, what would you like me to do? Do you want me to email Scott for you? And he said he was going to email you this week in relation to see if that could be done, so it doesn't get swallowed up and it goes on other projects.
Is this is Thorpe Marsh?
Yeah.
Is it? Yeah. I, as chief planner, I can't get involved in community chests and things like that. So the planning side of things is there's an argument about whether something is appropriate to get planning or not. It shouldn't be that you would get planning if you give us 20, 30 £40 million.
No, he just wanted some
Yeah.
of the money that they were putting back in for it not to get swallowed up in Doncaster on other projects or other
If
things.
Graham gets in
and go
touch
to
with me, what I'm doing with Graham is I'm tending to be liaising with him where we might have, say, vehicle movements causing a problem. So if I'm getting information on that, I'm feeding up to that Graham. They've got contractors that are not adhering to the route, and therefore they need to sort that out. He is linked in now with our kind of area teams as well, and they're having some discussions with him, as well as also our some people in our kind of area that does deal with community chess. So I will, if he gets hold of me, Rebecca, I will obviously make sure that these teams do maximise it. It's just we have to be a little careful with a planning hat on, getting involved in any subsequent funding that might be coming from the companies, because it's a separate decision to the actual planning application.
Thank you for that, Scott. We'll leave that with you, and you can liaise with Rebecca.
Yeah.
Jackie, I believe you... Sorry, if you want me to go back to that. Right, I'll come back to you in a minute, Jackie.
Oh.
Right. There is a major opportunity for residential and commercial development on the vacant site at Waterdale, linking the civic and cultural quarter back into the rest of the city's heart. Doncaster's beating heart represents the retail, businesses, civic and cultural core of the city centre. There is the potential for a significant new public space to complement Sir Nigel Gresley Square. My question is, why not include St James's Baths, complete with Turkish baths, as a unique attraction enhancing the cultural historical past of the city?
I mean, clearly, well, it's obviously a listed building. It's been vacant for a number of years. I think there are health and safety issues with the state of the building as well. My understanding is that building they have tried to work with a potential local developer to bring the conversion of the baths forward. There has been a planning application in along those lines to show a revised scheme. I think that has not been determined as yet, because there are elements that still need working on that planning application. My understanding is that our assets team are going to be going back out to the market to see if there's any private sector interest in that building. So it's not part of this site as such, but obviously if there was appropriate government funding came forward that we could use to bring that building back into use, if it fit the requirements of the funding, that would be something we'd certainly want to look at, because obviously there's been a lot of time and energy spent on regenerating this part of the city, and having a vacant building there like that is a frustration. But my understanding is he's going to be going back out to market to see if there is developer interest in bringing it forward.
Sorry to push it forward though. When you say health and safety reasons, what exactly do you actually mean?
You can't open up that building as it currently is, because there's holes in the floor. There's issues with parts of the building that has collapsed as well. So it's not. I mean, I've been in with a hard hat and boots on with somebody who knows the building, supervising where you can and can't stand on. So I suppose that's what I'm saying is, if the building was regenerated, it'd be fine. There wouldn't be a health, but I'm just sort of saying you couldn't literally open the doors on that building and say, right, we've got somebody who wants to use part of it for a certain use now. There will be a health and safety risk around it, because it has deteriorated over the time that it's sat vacant.
Is that through non-use or just vandalism, or has it been allowed to fall into this disrepair? Because the last time that I went into St George's Baths, admittedly it was quite some time ago, there was nothing wrong.
Yeah, how long ago was that?
Probably 20 years.
Okay.
But
I think there has
sorry, Scott, but premises just don't deteriorate. Holes don't suddenly appear in floors. There's got to be a reason behind it. When you look at the building from the external, the structure is sound. We've just had a roof put on it to protect it.
yeah, the roof's been put on to stop it getting worse, but it has got worse inside in terms of, you know, where you can walk around. I would, you know, personally wouldn't want to just walk around that building unsupervised without somebody who doesn't know where the problems have caused with the floor. It has been through the roof being damaged. I mean, whether that's something that committee will want to go and have a look at the building, I'm sure the assets team had let you have a look at it, but trust me when I say you couldn't just lease that building. It does need proper regenerating and bringing back into use. The proposed planning application that's in does show a revised scheme for it, which if it was implemented, it'd be fantastic. But I just think the developer who's put that in is obviously struggling to make that stack up financially. It is a listed building, so that means there are certain things that have to be done a certain way to preserve the building. Certain materials have to be therefore used, which does make it can be a challenge from a viability side of things. Do you do in, say, a new build facility which had all those things in? But yeah, it is not something that you could allow the public in in its current form.
Thank you, Scott. I shoot you over a question.
Yeah, just a quick one. The blue spikes on lamppost columns, for the benefit of the public and actually myself, because I'm unsure what they're for, can you explain what they are for, whether it's a guiding system for certain routes?
It is. Obviously, with some of the improvements that's been done to the streetscape and routes around the city centre over the last few years, there have been I think they're almost like blue spikes that are on some of the new lighting columns that have gone in there, which you can light as a wayfinding way. I think you'll see. I'm trying to think of another example. If you come out of Sheffield train station, you can see that some of their public realm is coloured a certain way. By that I mean seats and lights is coloured a certain way to show routes through the city centre, and that's how these can be used. So that's my understanding of what they utilised for.
Could this be sort of communicated to people using sort of the roads at night time? Because I didn't know what they were or really that they existed at all.
Yeah, I'm happy to pick that up with the team, definitely.
Jackie, you have a question?
Yeah, just really, with the Waterdale, you say all the green space that you've got on the map is yours, owned by the council now.
Well,
and you're going to develop it into trees and a space that's green, is that correct?
No.
No, not all green then.
No, the green area, if the lease agreement is reached, that would transfer the freehold ownership of it would transfer to the council. We can then bring forward a regeneration scheme, and obviously it says in the city strategy that it could be something that has some open space in there that does enhance the civic square we've got out here as well. So that will be, you know, if we were trying to get a developer to do that, that will be one of the asks of the scheme. I think obviously green space doesn't make money. So getting a developer to then sort of say, well, I'll come and build you a park and we'll make no money at all, would not be economically viable. So I think having a residential and commercial style scheme in there, which does have elements of greenery within there and bits of open space, is something that we would want to see a developer come forward and sort of say, yes, we can make that stack up.
Just from my point of view, I would think that that would actually attract more undesirables, which we don't want, which has been part of the problem with the city centre as it is. I mean, we're not New York. We don't need Central Park, do we? We need to entice people to come in footfall to spend in shops, perhaps the frontage of the shops. And French Gate's looking very sad these days. And the Waterdale used to be a vibrant, very busy shopping centre. Have you any idea why that went down? Has anybody given feedback as to why that has deteriorated so rapidly? I know it was owned by private companies before, but what's the point of trying to regenerate it, if you say, if there's not going to be any footfall, there's not going to be any reason to come into the city centre?
Yeah, I think obviously the civic and cultural quarter you can see is, you know, we've got a theatre here, we've got a museum and library. We've got the civic office itself. We've got a cinema. We've got retail units. We have got a civic square. So there has been a lot of investment around this side of the city. I think trying to get something in there in Waterdale that will feed into that is got to be a way forward for any sort of scheme in that in that area. So again, it would be good to come back and update you, because if the lease is signed and we can procure a developer, it would be good to come back with more detailed plans about how that would plan out. It's difficult at the minute without having a master plan and a developer at the minute. All we've got is the city strategy and an emerging master plan which talks about commercial and residential led elements.
Yeah, just another one slightly related to Waterdale. The shop sort of fronts across here. Although thankfully we have got a couple businesses in them at the moment. What are the sort of prospects of filling out all of the vacant slots in this sort of area around the council?
Again, I know our assets team are the ones who let those, so I'll try and get an update. Chris, if you liaise with me, I'll speak to the assets team and get an update on where they are, because I think 3 of the units are let. There's a couple that are vacant at the minute, but we'll get an update for you on that.
Are there any more questions?
Just on the building, the NHS building, are the rates market rates that we're signing up on a lease, and how long's the lease going to be for?
I think the lease is 25 years. I'm not sure, and effectively what we'd be doing is doing a back-to-back agreement where we'd sign the head lease and we would sublease on that basis. So effectively it shouldn't incur any costs for us as such. The reason why we're interested in doing this is if we can secure a big chunk of land like that, which the land and assets would come over to try and bring about regeneration of that. And I've just thought as well, so apologies, Jackie, there was an element I missed where you were talking about the Waterdale was a vibrant place, but I think if you turn the clock back many years, this was the site of the college, literally where this building is. That was a southern bus station, so buses came in there right next to the shopping centre, and you've got all the, but decisions were made many years ago to create the transport interchange that we've got now with the rail station, the bus station, the French Gate, and move everything down there. And I think what we saw then is this part of the city just wither on a vine, where the college went, the southern bus station went, Waterdale was then a bit too far away from people, and then I think if you kind of lump COVID and everything onto that as well, you've then got the situation where you've got to repurpose this and think differently about how it is. And I suppose that's what we're looking at with Waterdale is it's not going to come back as a retail shopping centre, because that's how the nature of high streets are changing. So I think doing something where you've got more people living in there with some supported commercial underpinning it, so the type of things that residents would utilise, is going to be the way forward, I think. And that's what we're seeing successful regeneration schemes taking place around the country. Is that's what they're leading with.
Thank you, Scott. Any other questions? If there's no more questions, we'll go to the recommendations. Now that discussions have finished, I would like to move to the recommendations. Does the panel feel like it has reviewed the information provided today? Can I ask if there are any additional recommendations? If so, what are they, and what is the supporting reason for the recommendation? Councillor.
I'd just like to recommend that Scott comes back in, 3 months? 6 months?
Oh, yeah, I'd say minimum 6 months, Steve's. I would have thought. So whether it's in your reporting cycle to come, within 6 to 12 months or something, I can liaise with Chris over that. But I would hope there'd be more detail then on the redevelopment of Waterdale and Waterfront at that point, because we'd be speaking to developers in a lot more detail.
Can we add that to the work plan? Is that agreed?
Yeah,
Agreed.
fine.
If there's no further discussions, we shall move on to the final item, which is the overview and scrutiny work plan and the council's forward plan to key decisions 81 and 94. So I'll hand you over to Christine Rothwell to outline the report. Does Councillor Wood wish to recommend the following? Oh.
Good afternoon, everybody. This is the final meeting of this work plan year, I think, for this committee. The work plan and the council's forward plan of key decisions are circulated for the panel's information. And when I referred to meeting, so what we start to do is look at items that we may want to look at next year. So if anybody's got any items, if they want to let the chair, the vice chair, myself and Caroline Martin know. As we've already seen, you know, Councillor Cox has just put forward an item to go on the work plan for next year. So it's just a little bit of a reminder as to where we are, what we've done this year, and items that you may have for next year. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Caroline. Does Councillor Wood wish to recommend the following?
Yep. I recommend that we should be looking at the marketplace in both Doncaster and Mexborough, identifying the KPIs to make sure that they're current and up to date for how we operate, not how we used to operate. So I'd like to add that to the agenda if that's possible. Everybody agreed?
Is everyone agreed? Agreed, thank you.
And then some of the things that we want to be identifying is footfall, unit take-up, uses, promotions, comparisons with other authorities. We noted through some of our work sessions that Barnsley's supposed to have a really good setup, and it would be a good idea to probably do some benchmarking against them as well. And also invite MAM in, Business Doncaster, and relevant council officials, officers to help support this uptake.
Are we agreed? Agreed. Right, so does the panel note the report? I would now like to close the meeting and thank you for your attendance today.
Cheers, Chair. Thank you.